So welcome everyone to this week's Redbourn Community Call on Wednesday the 7th of October on an absolutely glorious autumn morning. My name's Rachel Mackie. If you don't know me, I set up the running club in Redbourn and have been involved with Active in Redbourn since its inception and work each week with Simon, Ivan and Chris on putting this community call together. So it's an absolute pleasure this morning to be able to host the call for you today. As always, thank you so much to everyone who's donated, including the Parish Council, and we can keep these calls free. The call's being streamed live on the Redbourners Facebook page and will be made available on the Active in Redbourn Facebook page afterwards too. So our guests today are the wonderful Redbourn Players, and we'll come on to hear what they've got for us today in a moment. Will Gibbs is back this week with his thought for the week, and we also have Bim Afolami, MP for Harpenden and Hitchin, and he'll be talking about local priorities and answering some questions that we have for him. So welcome to you all. So first up, the Redbourn Players. Hello, David, Mario and Hilary.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're very well. Again, it's a lovely morning and we're all raring to go.
Fantastic. So David, I'll hand over to you to do a little introduction, or we just get straight into it as you prefer.
Okay, right. Well, this morning we thought we'd do a little bit of Faulty Towers, arguably the best sitcom of all time. And the excerpt we've chosen is from The Builders, where Sybil has left for the weekend to play golf, leaving Basil in charge of some internal building work. She thinks the work is being carried out by the reputable Mr. Stubbs, but Basil, in an effort to save money, has instead employed the incompetent Mr. O'Reilly. Polly, what have you done to my hotel?
What?
What have you done to my dining room door? Where is it?
I don't know.
Well, why don't you know? I left you in charge.
I fell asleep. It's not my fault.
You fell asleep and it's not your fault.
Well, he forgot to wake me.
Who forgot to wake you up? Manuel, I knew it.
It wasn't his fault.
Then whose fault is it then? Dennis Compton's?
Well, you hired O'Reilly, didn't you? Who warned you? Who else would do something like this?
Oh, I see. It's my fault, is it? Of course. There was I thinking it was your fault because you'd been left in charge, or Manuel's fault for not waking you, and all the time it's my fault. But what am I going to do? Sybil will be back at lunchtime. I'm a dead man, don't you realise?
Don't panic.
Well, what else is there to do?
Call O'Reilly. He made this mess. He can clear it up.
Right. I'll call O'Reilly. Hello, Mr. O'Reilly? Man, how are you this morning? Oh, good, good. No rare diseases or anything? Oh, I do beg your pardon. It's Basil Faulty. You remember? The poor sod you do jobs for. Well, how are things at your end? Good, good. Well, how would you like to hear about things my end? Oh, well, up to your usual standard, I would say. A few holes in the wall, the odd door missing, but nothing you couldn't be sued for. Now, look here, O'Reilly. I want my dining room door put back in and the other one taken out by 1 o'clock. Do you understand? No, I don't want to debate about it. If you're not here in 20 minutes, I shall come over and insert a large garden gnome. Good day. Oh, there you are, O'Reilly. Right, how long do you think it's going to take you?
Well, it'll be as fast as I can.
Well, it better be fast enough. I mean, she's back in 4 hours.
Well, the trouble with you, Mr. Faulty, is that you worry too much. If the good Lord had meant us to worry, he would have given us things to worry about.
Well, he has. My wife, she will be back here in 4 hours and can kill a man at 10 paces with one blow of her tongue. I mean, how am I supposed not to whine?
Oh, just remember, Mr. Faulty, there's always someone worse off than yourself.
Well, is there? Well, I'd like to meet him. I could do with a laugh.
Oh, I tell you, if the good Lord
is mentioned one more time, I will move you closer to him. Now, please. Oh, my God, she's here. Hide, hide, quick. I'll try and get rid of her.
Hello, Basil.
Hello, dear. You finished your golf early?
We haven't started yet, Basil.
Well, it's a good job you're here, Sybil. I mean, you're not going to believe this. But look at that. I mean, what a fiasco. But that's Stubbs for you. Who'd have believed it? A reputable builder like that.
Where's O'Reilly, Basil?
O'Reilly?
Yes, O'Reilly.
Sybil, you never cease to amaze me. I mean, just because of this, you automatically assume that it has to be O'Reilly. I mean, you just assume that I've been lying all along. I mean, why O'Reilly?
Because his van's outside.
Well, he's here now. I mean, of course he's here now. He's come to clear up the mess your Stubbs has made. And on a Sunday. Now, that's what I call service.
Yes, but if Stubbs has made this mess, then I think he should be the one to come and clear it up.
Yes, but there's no point now that O'Reilly's here, dear. I mean, we want it done straight away.
But there's no point in paying money to Mr. O'Reilly when Mr. Stubbs would have to do it for free. I'll call him now.
He won't be there on a Sunday.
I'll call him at home.
I've already called him at home, and he wasn't there.
When did you call him?
First thing, before I called O'Reilly.
Wasn't that rather early for a Sunday?
And then I called him again just before you arrived, and there's definitely nobody there.
Basil!
Yes, dear?
Don't you dare! Don't you dare give me any more of your pathetic lies! What do you take me for? Do you really think that I would believe that this shambles is the work of professional builders, people who do it for a living?
Not really, no.
Why did I trust you, Basil? Why did I let you make the arrangements? I could have seen what was going to happen. Why did I do it?
Well, we all make mistakes, dear.
I'm sick to death of you. You never learn, do you? You never, ever learn. We've used O'Reilly 3 times this year, and each time it's been a fiasco. That wall out there is still not done. You got him to change a washer in November, and we didn't have any running water for 2 weeks.
Well, he's not really a plumber, dear.
Well, why did you hire him? Because he's cheap.
Well, cheap-ish.
And the reason he's cheap-ish is because he's no bloody good.
Oh, Sybil, you do exaggerate. I mean, he's not brilliant.
Not brilliant? He belongs in a zoo. He's shoddy, doesn't care, he's a liar, he's nothing but a half-witted, thick Irish joke.
Oh, hello, O'Reilly. We were just talking about you, and then we got on to another Irish builder we used to know. God, he was awful.
I was talking about you, Mr. O'Reilly. I have seen more intelligent creatures than you lying on their backs at the bottom of ponds. I have seen better organised creatures than you running around farmyards with their heads cut off. Now, your things and get out. I never want to see you or any of your men in my hotel again. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to speak to a professional builder. Hello, Mr. Stubbs. It's Sybil Faulty here. I'm sorry to disturb you on a Sunday, but we have a problem here with a couple of doors we'd like you to take care of. When do you think you could come and take a look at them? Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. That'd be fine. See you then. Goodbye. Right, Basil, I think I shall go over to Audrey's now, and I shan't be back until the morning.
Have a nice day, dear. Don't drive over any mines or anything. Where are you going, O'Reilly? I mean, you're not going to take that seriously, are you?
Well, I thought I might.
You thought you might? I mean, what sort of a man are you, O'Reilly? Are you going to let her speak to us like that?
Well, she just did, Mr. Faulty.
No, she didn't. She thinks she did. But we'll show her. We're not just going to put this door back and take that one out. We're going to close that one off and put that one through as well. We're going to do the best day's work you've ever done, O'Reilly. Morning, dear. Did you have a pleasant evening? Mr. Stubbs. My wife's just there.
Oh, Mr. Stubbs, this is most awkward. I'm afraid I'll have to apologise. My husband has put me in a rather embarrassing situation. I was going to ask you to do some work here, but I was away last night, and when I came back just now, well, it appears to have been done.
Everything all right, dear?
I mean, it'll probably fall down by lunchtime.
Oh, do you think so, dear? Well, let's ask a real expert. Do you think it'll all fall down by lunchtime, Mr. Stubbs?
No.
No, Mr. Stubbs wouldn't agree with you on that one, dear.
Yeah, it's a very good job.
Did you hear that, dear? A very good job. Well, none of us like being wrong, dear. I certainly don't. And then, Mr. Stubbs, we knock this door through here and close this one off.
What did you use? An RSJ?
No, 4x2. Not bad, eh, dear? And not expensive.
No, I mean for the lintel. Did you use an RSJ? You know, an iron girder? Or did you use a concrete lintel?
No, a wooden one.
But that's a supporting wall.
What?
Quite. Well, thanks very much for coming over this morning. And
Just a minute. You mean it isn't strong enough?
That's a supporting wall, Mrs. Faulty. It could give way at any moment.
Any moment?
Yes. God help the floors above. Look, keep this door shut until I can get a screwjack to prop it up. Before the whole bloody lot comes in. Oh, I don't know. Cowboys.
Basil, I'm going to make you regret this for the rest of your life. And where are you going with that garden gnome?
I'm just off to see Mr. O'Reilly, dear. And then I think I might go to Canada.
Well done. Absolutely fantastic. I think I could hear Ivan chuckling away during that as well. That was absolutely brilliant. Thanks, David, Mario and Hilary. I love Bob.
Yes, I think it's something that, you know, everyone's a little bit familiar with, you know, an absolute classic of the...
It just amazes me how few episodes were actually made.
There were only 12. There were 2 series of 6. And they sort of picked one ahead, so all of them are just perfect.
It's absolutely brilliant, and you just think compared to nowadays when they'd be wanting to make so much money from something that was as popular as that, it's rather nice, isn't it, that it sits in a perfect little bubble.
Yes, I think so, that so many series today are sort of recommissioned because they're popular, when in fact they never intended to extend them, and as you say, they just sort of spiral a bit out of control.
No, this is absolutely lovely. I think one of my earliest memories is watching this with my dad and seeing him laughing away, and you know, the laughter's quite infectious, isn't it? And I think I've always enjoyed it ever since. So no, absolutely brilliant, and thank you so much. We really enjoyed that. We always love having the players on, so hopefully you'll come back again. David, I believe you have some exciting news for us that you're going to share.
Well, we do. I mean, we've been alluding to this for the last few months, and we've put something in the common round. But yeah, we are definitely going to be performing a play in December, as usual, and we're really pleased about that. We found one that's it's been written by one of my favourite authors, David Tristram, and it's a socially distanced play, which is ideal for lockdown. It's been written specifically for lockdown, and yeah, it's quite good because it'll be a drama group in lockdown doing a play about a drama group in lockdown. But it's just a one-act play. It's 50 minutes, and so what we are doing is we're actually going to be doing the show twice. On our normal 3 performance dates. The performance dates are Thursday, Friday and Saturday, 3rd, 4th, 5th of December, which are our usual times. And what we're doing is we'll be doing 2 shows on each of those evenings, 6 in total, one at 7, one at 9. And that means that we can, hopefully, as many people as possible can see it, because like all the drama companies, I mean, we're facing what we're having to do is a vastly reduced audience in the village hall. We are able to stage it, but only to an audience of about 30 rather than the usual 100 being spaced out. So it'll be a bit different for everyone, but hopefully over 6 performances we can, everyone who wants to see it will be able to do that. And we're also using 2 casts, which gives as many of the actors a chance as possible, because there's 4 actors in each, so that's 8, but it means that yes, a different cast will be at 7 and 9, so that they don't get too exhausted one way and another.
Oh, well, I'm really pleased you found a way of being able to do that in a COVID-friendly way, and I believe we can get our tickets from Ashton's.
Yes, the tickets will be available from Ashton's in person. Again, people have got to be very, very careful about sort of going in, queuing one at a time, wearing a mask as usual, and we will have to take additional contact information for track and trace. But tickets will be available in person in cash from Ashton's, but you'll also be able to contact us by email. and we will be doing, as far as we can, a sort of remote ticket service where you can pay directly by direct transfer to the player's account, and the tickets will be waiting on the door when people arrive. So you will be able to buy them in person, also by email, and there's a contact number as well. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to contact us, and if they want to do it totally from their own homes, then that's possible as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, David, and thanks to you and the players for this morning. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, so moving on to Will. Welcome back, Will.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Good to be here.
We missed you last week, but we had Sarah Hinchliffe doing Thought for the Week, which was fantastic.
Brilliant. Well, that's up the ante, hasn't it? So, oh dear. But lovely to be back, and thank you.
No worries.
Last night I had the privilege of attending a service at Westminster Abbey, at which we were hosting bishop and priest colleagues from the Orthodox and Eastern churches. I'm part of a small committee that tries to foster dialogue and good relations between the Church of England and these other strands of the Church, and we were fortunate to be able to do that in such an auspicious setting. It was an amazing reminder of what an incredible place it is, and the singing was pretty close to heaven. It is a building that's filled with monuments and memorials to the great and the good of society, from political and public life, poets, musicians, and all who've left their mark on this nation in their day. I'm not going to talk about memorials this morning. We've covered that ground in a previous Thought for the Week. But I do want to reflect on Westminster Abbey itself, which is one big memorial to Edward the Confessor. It was through his benefaction that the monastery on the site was endowed so generously and was to become the national locus for the relationship between church and state, as well as the setting for many important royal occasions. After the service last night, ordinarily we would have been hosting a reception for our guests, but that isn't really possible in these COVID times. Instead, as others were escorted from the building by the vergers, we were privileged to be taken to see the shrine of Edward the Confessor, shut away from general view and not normally accessible to the public. Here we spent a few minutes, and the bishop of the Armenian church who was with us led us in prayer. It was special, and it clearly meant a lot to him too. And the reason for this is that Edward the Confessor was born before the great schism that happened in the church between the East and West in 1054. So he is someone that can be revered and held in common by Orthodox and Western Christians alike. He's called the Confessor because of his great piety and the desire to confess and live out his faith in his decisions and actions. But of course, as the Catholic theologian and priest Ronald Knox reminds us, when we venerate St. Edward, we actually venerate a failure. But we do so advisedly. Not that there have not been great saints who were also great kings, but because we will not let ourselves be blinded by the lure of worldly success, so as to forget that the true statesmanship is exercised in the council chamber, and the true warfare fought on the battlefield of the human soul. Ask yourself, which would you rather have been in life of all the great dead who lie in Westminster Abbey? And you will find it a difficult question to answer. There is so much that dazzles, so much that captivates the imagination. Would you have rather written this, painted that, have built that or discovered this, have won this triumph or carried that enactment? We can hardly say. But ask yourself, which of those great dead you would rather be now? Your body there, your soul far away. Is there any Christian who would not ask to change places with the Confessor, who would not choose his resting place there to wait for the opening of the great doomsday book in which nothing is recorded of men, but whether they meant good or evil, whether they loved or neglected God? The conqueror who diverted the stream of history went to his grave disappointed and lies there a historical memory. The confessor, whose ambitions could be satisfied by finding a poor man his dinner, saw no corruption in death, and lives the patron of his fellow countrymen. One task only he set before himself that had any external magnificence about it, and that was characteristic of him. It was no fortress, no royal palace, no court of justice that he planned. The house of God lay waste, and he must rebuild it. And, as if it were a symbol of the life he lived, built together from little acts of kindness and little sacrifices of self, stone by stone and arch by arch, rose the Abbey Church of Westminster, which, for all the additions and the restorations that have altered it in the course of the centuries, we still call his church. I guess it asks a question of us about what we see as success and failure and what really matters in life. If we see success purely in terms of a bigger salary, a larger house, a faster car, then we may be measuring our lives and worth in a very narrow way that rather misses the point. What I've said there is, of course, at odds with much of boardroom speak and corporate drive, where they would spin failure, but certainly not tolerate it for too long. They would say that the goal is to push our success to the point of failure, and not failing indicates that we are not trying hard enough. As the author T.S. Eliot said, only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. English science fiction writer Sir Arthur C. Clarke remarked that the only way of finding the limits of the possible is by going beyond them into the impossible. In similar vein, the winning approach of famous Formula One racing driver Mario Andretti was embodied in his view that if things seem under control, you're just not going fast enough. If we always play it safe and remain in our safe space, then we may not experience failure, but we may also be missing out on possible areas of success that could be easily exploited. But the trouble with much of this approach is that it's always about what I can achieve or do or gain, either for myself or for whichever company has its hold over me at the current time. What if our goal in life was about what would be the best for others, or for all? What if real success wasn't about how great people thought we were, but the great things we can do for other people? COVID has challenged us in all sorts of ways, and some of it has been tough, and still is. But it's also given us a chance to step back and ask some of these questions. I've had several really profound conversations on Redbourn Common and in the churchyard with people with demanding high-powered jobs who say that they don't miss the slog of a commute every day, the sense of the rat race, the competitive office atmosphere. Now, working from home, they get the job done and are really valuing more family time, more fresh air, and a better work-life balance. And for some, a chance to do things for others as well as for themselves. I guess it's about how we see things like success and failure and what really matters in life. I think I'm always going to admire Mother Teresa more than Richard Branson.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Will. That's absolutely fantastic. I know a lot of what you've said certainly resonates with our family during lockdown. We've achieved a lot more of a sense of balance, with all its tricky times with COVID. I think, not having a commute's been absolutely fantastic for us to achieve that balance. So,
absolutely. Yeah, and the danger or the temptation is to kind of take up that kind of 1 hour commute at either end of the day and just make that working time. Well, I'm sure your boss would really like you to do that, but maybe you could use some of that time for something else, and that's why things like active in Redbourn and enjoying the open space, or perhaps just kind of spending a bit of time with a neighbour and and just checking on them. All those things are actually really important as well, and getting that balance perhaps just a little bit better calibrated.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll tell you a funny story. My husband was walking up the stairs to the room that he works in, and I could hear he was groaning, and he said, "Oh, I'm sick of this commute." And it did make me laugh. I just thought,
yeah, brilliant. I, of course, have one of the best commutes to work ever. I come out of the vicarage and walk a lovely sort of a 2-minute walk along a tree-lined avenue to down the church drive to my place of work. And I am truly blessed, and I know I am. I'm very fortunate.
Fantastic. Oh, well, thank you so much, Will, and it's lovely to have you back, and we look forward to hearing you next week.
Pleasure. Good to be with you. Thank you. Thanks, Rachel.
Now, moving on, last but absolutely no means least, hello, Bim.
Hello, Rachel. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Surviving.
Okay.
Perfectly all right. Yes. I'm in Westminster in Parliament just before Prime Minister's questions.
Ah, okay. How's the mood in Westminster?
It's been better. I think that, like everybody, everybody's basically fed up with COVID. The problem is COVID isn't fed up with you. And so, you know, there's a deep frustration about it. And, you know, we're just trying to get through this period of time. The good news, there is good news, is that behind the scenes people are getting much more optimistic than they were a month, 6 weeks ago about a vaccine in the not too distant future. People are genuinely optimistic about that. People who know about what's been sort of going on in Oxford and various other places. So I am sort of clinging to that to give hope that sooner rather than later we'll be through all of this.
And are they putting any timescales on that?
Yes, but I'll get in terrible trouble. But what I would say,
I tried, Ben.
what I would say is, you know, what are we now? October. You know, we're talking, you know, you don't have to wait as long as sort of next spring.
Okay.
So, you know, we're thinking of something short of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
is what people say.
Fantastic.
So keep the faith. Keep cheery.
Well. Absolutely. And did I spy you on Redbourn High Street recently with an umbrella in the rain? What
yes,
were you
did. I was handing out a business survey to businesses in the village, up and down the high street, really asking them on sort of how we can help them, what sort of policies we need to do, how they found things, and the sort of things that we can do from central government to help them. I'm in close touch with the Chancellor on this sort of thing, and I had a chat with him about it, must have been about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, and he is, because we postponed the budget that was meant to come in that was meant to be in November, and we're not going to do it probably till next year, and so he's really looking for ideas on how we can help businesses, particularly in small villages, small towns, outside big cities, because I don't, just going back to commutes, I mean, I don't think that the days where as many people as were before sort of doing 5-day commutes into London, I just don't think that's necessarily going to return. I think that a lot more people are going to be doing 3 or 4 days in the office rather than 5, even 2 days in the office, some people. And so bearing that in mind, we've got to think about what the impact is on businesses in different parts of the country. I happen to think it would be a good thing for businesses in places like Redbourn, because there'll be more people around. The pubs will be busier during the week for lunch, you know, that sort of thing. There'll be more people around, more people doing things, and that can only be positive, I think. On the other hand, I've got to be honest and say that's pretty terrible for central London, and it's pretty terrible for centre of Birmingham, centre of Manchester, and so you know, these things all net off.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we've had some specific questions in from some of our listeners, which we'll put to you if that's okay.
Of course.
And we asked Redbourn residents what was important to them, and we had a petition signed by nearly 2,000 people in favour of a cycle path between our village and St Albans, so that's along the A5183. We didn't get funding for this from HCC. Is there any kind of way in which you can support us? Because it's something we're passionately about.
Yeah, so the first thing I would say, and actually I was at the bike shop. Is it the Bike Loft? Have I got that right?
Yeah, the Bike Loft.
I was there. I was there when I was in the village the other day, and I was chatting to the owner of it about this very thing. The first thing I'll say is huge efforts to Annie Brewster and all the people working with her on this. This was not through lack of effort, and you know, you all should be very proud of the effort you put in and the case you made. What I've done is, in fact, was it even this week or the end of last week, I spoke with Herts County Council, the officers, about this very thing and about cycling generally. Where we have got to, and what I am doing, is I think one of the problems with cycling is, in areas like ours, is that we try and do things in a very incremental way. So we say, okay, what we need is a cycle path from, say, Redbourn to St Albans. Now, I happen to agree with that. But actually, what the fundamental thing we need is for there to be a vision for what sort of a cycling network in our area looks like. Because what too often happens is that there's a cycle path done on the A5183. I live, you know, off the A5183. I know it well. It is a wide enough road. I was very surprised that didn't get funded. I think it's a wide enough road that it's much cheaper and easier to do it on that sort of road than it is all sorts of others. But what we need is there to be a network so we know what a fully networked cycle path system looks like, so that you could go from Redbourn to Harpenden or to St Albans and to Wheatamstead, knowing that you can get around and actually operate. Because what ends up happening is we do one road and then you get to the end of the road and then there's no cycle path. And then there's another one sort of 10 miles away or whatever. And that's not actually helpful if we really want to improve the amount of people, the number of people cycling sort of on a sustained basis. So what I'm doing is working with Herts County Council to get that and to get a plan developed. They've agreed that they've got various people who help them with this sort of thing. And they've agreed that one of those people will be deputed to work with us. And I'm very shortly going to be in touch with you guys in Redbourn. There's a group in Wheatamstead I'm working with in a very similar way, and in Harpenden, so that we can get a plan together. Once there's an overarching plan, I think it will be easier to fund things, because then, I'll go to central government for that, because you can see almost the whole vision. Whereas if you say, fund this particular road, they sort of go, well, what's the point in that? Will it actually increase the number of people cycling? Whereas if we can see the vision. So that's really where I'm going with it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's fantastic. I think there has been so many more people cycling. You know, just being out on the roads myself, if I've gone out on a bike, you know, so there is clearly, the demand is there. It's just how to make it safer, rather than necessarily making the network and then bringing more cyclists. So I think there's probably both ways to look at it as well. So I don't know if there's any.
Yes, I think that's very wise, and it's good for me to know that you occasionally get on a bike like the rest of us, rather than running everywhere.
Good point, yes, good point. When I have to go much further distances, but I do have to get on a bike. Don't enjoy it as much though. I'm not a very good cyclist. But no, that makes a lot of sense. So thanks for that. We really appreciate it. And obviously, as Active in Redbourn, we'd love to be part of developing that plan with Simon, the Bike Loft, and Annie as well. So do keep us in the loop on that. That'd be great.
I will.
Okay, another question that we had in, if we want Redbourn residents to play a greater part in creating a more sustainable community, what approaches would you encourage? Oh, that's a big question there, isn't it?
Well, it's all right, because, you know, I famously don't talk very much, Rachel, as you know. So,
I was just thinking, I've given someone who talks a lot of very big questions, so off you go.
Okay, I will do my best. So, the way I think about this is, I am not one of those people that think what we need to be doing is making people who are financially struggling make their lives harder by, I don't know, forcing them to spend money they don't have. Because fundamentally, that I don't think is the right way to go. However, for people who can afford to do certain things, I think that there are things that all of us can do. One thing is source much more of our food locally, because actually you source your food of all types locally. That reduces the miles, the miles it has to go, and that is also helps build and sustain the local community. So I think that from a carbon and sort of local perspective, I think that's better. First thing I'd do. The second thing I'd do is, and I'm working on this, developing networks of electric car charging points that hopefully in the coming weeks I'll come out with soon, is for people who can afford to try and get an electric car, I'd urge them to try and do so. There are good tax incentives for doing that, but that's not the reason. It's a reason because actually that's the direction that we're all going in, and for those who can afford to do this, I would really urge them to do that, or get a hybrid. If they can't necessarily afford a full electric car, I think that's the sort of thing that can make a big difference. And the third thing I would suggest that people do is, and this is something that I have to be honest, I'm not a fashionista. I'm not somebody who thinks particularly about clothes, particularly at all. But it has really been struck home to me around the movement around using clothes more effectively in terms of shopping second-hand, not sort of throwing away things after, wearing them once. The whole concept of fast fashion and that throwaway culture, I think, is not a good one. And a huge number of clothes, so actually recycling clothes, giving clothes to charity shops, shopping second-hand, not only is it cheaper, but actually you're reusing good material. Shopping second-hand is also a really, really positive thing that is an underappreciated way of making an area more sustainable.
And we in Redbourn, I don't know if you know, but we have the Redbourn Reuse community, which is an online...
Yes, you do, yeah.
Which is absolutely fantastic, and I think probably Harpenden and Wheathampstead have one as well. But it's absolutely brilliant way of locally, particularly for example for me, children's clothes, because they use clothes a lot more